I started cross country wellness essentially to honor my father. So I lost my dad to an accidental overdose of pain pills in 2015. He was in a car accident. He had 17 broken ribs, fractured shoulder, and a punctured lung. And they put him in a drug induced coma for 35 days. And then when he came out of his coma, hydrocodone and blood pressure medicine was basically the only thing prescribed to him. One day he just had a heart attack in his sleep and didn't wake up. That being, I was 27 years old when that happened. So not only was it a, punch to the gut for me, I didn't want other people to have to go through what I experienced.
Welcome to the Roll Up and Roll Out podcast. Sit down with blue-collar business owners and inspired entrepreneurs to get the industry insights from the leaders that grow our local communities and learn how to scale your business. Regardless of GED, these people know how to GSD. Here is your host, Paul Childers. Let's get to work.
Welcome back, everybody, to another podcast episode of Roll Up and Roll Out, where I talk with business owners that may or may not have their GEDs, but every single one of them knows how to GSD, get shit done. Today we got JBird, owner of Cross Country Wellness. JBird, welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to have you on. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background.
Hey, man, appreciate you allowing me to jump on the show and glad to be here. And thanks for everybody listening. And so my name's JBird, as you said, owner of Cross Country Wellness. We opened Cross Country Wellness in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. I started Cross Country Wellness essentially to honor my father. So I lost my dad to an accidental overdose of pain pills in 2015. He was in a car accident. He had 17 broken ribs, fractured shoulder, and a punctured lung. And they put him in a drug induced coma for 35 days. And then when he came out of his coma, hydrocodone and blood pressure medicine was basically the only thing prescribed to him. And then one day he just had a heart attack in his sleep and didn't wake up. So I wanted to, other than just that being, I was 27 years old when that happened. So not only was it a, punch to the gut for me, I didn't want other people to have to go through what I experienced. And I wanted to help them with a plant-based medicine with their journey to healing. You know what I mean? So Big Pharma has unfortunately gotten so many people hooked, and, I could, talk for hours about that, and we both could, or we know somebody that has been affected by the Big Pharma. So being an advocate in cannabis, I wanted to help people with the plant medicine and be the change that I wanted to see in the world and provide an alternative for pain, for sleep, for anxiety, for inflammation, and even for, high functioning entrepreneurs that need to shut it off at night and be able to focus, opposed to always their timer ticking, you know what I mean? And they're just going nonstop thinking about shit you got to do the next day. So more importantly, I mean, that's who I am. That's how I started the company. And we're 4 years old and we're just getting started and glad to be here.
Yeah, man. It's been really interesting. I live in Minnesota, and we just, what was it, 2 years ago, I think, about that we just legalized recreational use of marijuana, and they're limited milligrams you can buy at the stores, but it's legal here, right? And the really kind of cool thing is it's kind of sweeping the nation as far as the next kind of hot thing. So as you're kind of growing and establishing this stuff and building out your product, was there kind of a focus area that you really wanted to exist within in this category to kind of grow and set yourself apart as this kind of started establishing in more states? Like, was that obviously the health and wellness piece is a huge part of that. But outside of your dad having the experience he did, and my dad had a bad experience with clinics and pharmaceutical companies as well, which I ultimately think resulted in his passing away. He had some other stuff from Vietnam, but were there other influences other than that kind of guided you to the path that you went down, or added on to the core of what you were doing?
Yeah, that's a great question too. And so, um, essentially, I realized that I was going to be able to provide something that wasn't available to people back home, which was available to people right now in Vegas. So, right now, hence the name Cross Country Wellness, I moved from Memphis, Tennessee to Las Vegas to get into the industry and learn and actually get the education. So by time that, Tennessee goes legal, I'm going to have 10 years of education and experience on anybody in the state, unless people in the state actually have came out of state and traveled and worked in an industry. You know what I mean? So I wanted to be a pioneer, I guess, you know what I mean, of learning and educating myself and others on the benefits and, at least allowing the people back home to experience the plant that I can access so freely here in this state and have a way for them to experience the benefits of it. So that was another leading factor of me wanting to get into the CBD side, taking the psychoactive effects out of it, the THC, and leaving just the CBD side. So, and helping people, like I said, a lot of people didn't realize that, CBD definitely helps with anxiety. It helps with sleep. It helps with inflammation, and all these help as long as you know what your therapeutic dose is. And that's kind of been my biggest push, is educating people on how much to take based on their own body.
Sure. As you've been doing that, have you been working with, different laboratories that are growing the stuff and, extracting it? Like, what does that process look with you? And I, don't give any proprietary information away, but like, what did like maybe the better way to word this is like, what are some things that shocked you or really stood out and surprised you while you were on this journey that you maybe kind of knew about the stuff before you got into it, but we're like, wow, this is actually really incredible that it's able to do this.
So I think one of the biggest things, so I'll answer this in a two-part question. So first part, I found out how all this stuff worked by human interaction. So after about 20 to 30,000 interactions of human people coming in the dispensary, me working as a bud tender. So imagine you right now as a bartender, and I ask you what are the top 5 drinks that people come in and order. Without fail, you'll be able to tell me what the top 5 drinks are ordered. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You'll be able based off of just how much people order.
Yep.
So essentially, people would come in over and over and over again, and you don't reorder something if it doesn't work or the product's not good.
Yep.
So moving from Memphis, Tennessee to Vegas, I was kind of a nerd, and I really wanted to indulge myself in the cannabis space wholeheartedly. I just jumped all in. And so I was just consuming so much data and like learning what the best brands were based off of, consumer purchases, you know what I mean? And why is the same cannabis $25 and $65? What makes them a $40 difference when you light it on fire? And so I'm learning the quality and everything about everything. And so I say all that to say, like, the human interactions that I've got with everybody telling me the products that work, I formulated my 6 products. And so when I found out that the topical, here's the second part to answer your question. When I found out that the topical worked within about 120 seconds, when I saw that for the very first time, I thought that the lady was BSing me. You know what I mean? I was like, there's no way that your arm feels better after I just rubbed that on.
Mhm.
I was like, you know what I mean? And I think that that's kind of one of the eye opening experiences, is like people trying something for the first time works really well.
Yep.
And the pain cream was the intro because they didn't have to physically take anything. People are skeptic about eating something or taking a CBD drug, or you know what I mean? They're thinking the wrong thing. So I was able to help people, or I would say break the ice by giving somebody a topical that they could rub on the affected area that hurt, whether it was a migraine, whether it was a back pain, whether it was their kneecap, whether it was their ankle. Instead of smoking a joint, I started recommending people pain cream for an alternative. And it made so much more sense because you don't need to be high if your ankle hurts.
Right. Right.
You, and so long story, or to long answer short, um, you know, I think that the human interaction, they tell you what works or doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like the reviews alone, you only get reviews either because you suck or you're really good.
Yep.
There's no mediocre reviews. And then after I got what worked, I then got the product. And then once I got the product, I realized what products work really well. And then, but the pain cream surprised me the most. And then the deeper that I've gotten involved in cannabis, I'm learning the different cannabinoids.
Sure.
So there's different cannabinoids that do different things for the body. So I'm learning the more that you can have a full spectrum and multi cannabinoid product, it's going to be a lot more beneficial overall for you than just an isolated CBD, an isolated THC, or so forth or so on.
Yep.
Hopefully, I didn't nerd out too much for people.
No, but that makes sense, right? I mean, there and as you get more people getting into this industry and really diving in and learning, I think we're gonna find some really cool discoveries and new uses and stuff for this. And it's just bringing it to present of mind, and I think kind of taking away the um maybe the bad voodoo that's been around it for so long, right? Because the old stigma is just a bunch of pothead hippies sitting around, not doing anything, smoking weed and being useless. And it's like, okay, there's a lot more benefits to this. So, talk to me a little bit about, you drove out, you went to Las Vegas, you started doing some educating, learning, doing some research on this stuff, and then you open up your business. Um, one of the things that I'm always curious about is, prior to opening up your business, did you or anybody in your family have any prior entrepreneurial like experience that you're pulling from? Or was this a was this something where you're just learning as you go? And so kind of any new experience that you come across is like really truly a new experience.
Yeah, man. I mean, I get chill bumps when you ask me that because I don't think that like I could say that anybody in my family was entrepreneurial. I would just say that they were good at sales. You know what I mean? So I do think that like my mom was and is a badass salesperson.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? My grandfather was in life insurance sales his whole life. So like the amount of expertise that I think that was just like drilled in my head of like life is sales in itself. You know what I mean? You're selling yourself to get a job. You're selling yourself to get, a mate, whether it's a boyfriend or girlfriend. You know what I mean? You're selling yourself all the time. So, to answer that, I don't think that I had somebody that was entrepreneurial as a leader, but I think I kind of learned it as I went and as I just realized that I wanted to strive for more and leave a legacy. So getting with my fiance and having my kids, I got two step kids, 19 and 16 this year, and we'll be together 6 years this year.
Okay.
So that the foundation that they've provided for me has allowed me to lift off further and start something that I didn't have growing up from a broken household. So mom and dad split when I was 10 to 12 years old. So, and then I was raised from 12 to, 18 by a single mom.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So she did everything that she could to raise us as kids and just make ends meet. You know what I mean? So, like, at the same time, I had her to look up to at I mean, in my opinion, she's an entrepreneur herself
Yeah.
for, making ends meet. You know what I mean? not giving up. And I think that's a huge thing is like, it's not over till we give up, you know? And so, um, I haven't gave up yet, and I've faced trials and tribulations. I've messed up, um, and I think that forever evolving. You know what I mean? I think that's one thing that makes a business owner is like, how do we overcome this current obstacle or this current problem, and then just get over it and move on to the next one? Because guess what? More problems are going to come, and you're going to have to solve more fucking problems. They just get harder.
Yep. What? Yep.
I feel
As I've been doing this podcast, the kind of recurring theme that I get from a lot of the business owners I chat with is resiliency and action taking. I'm surprised one of my kids hasn't popped in yet and said something. But it's that resiliency to push through adversity, having a big vision or at least an idea of what it is that you're trying to accomplish that's big enough to keep dragging you through on the days where you're just kind of getting kicked around, drug around, feel like your head's just getting shoved into a pot of water and you're not getting coming back up for air ever, and then it's that ability to take action off of it and not be afraid of whatever's going to happen, right? Because sometimes you just have to put it out there and let it do what it's going to do. And that can be a scary thing for a lot of people. And I think that's why a lot of people don't do the entrepreneurial thing. So, you mentioned that your did you say fiance or your girlfriend that you're with?
fiance.
Fiance? Yeah. So you said that she's been super supportive in this. How much of an influence has that been on you that she's supportive of what you're doing that's allowed you to kind of just dive all in to this business?
Well, I think one of the huge things that helps out is that I'm a huge extrovert and she's a huge introvert. You know what I mean? And so she holds it down at the house while I'm able to go do my thing and do myself. And she trusts that I'm out there doing exactly that. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that we've built over our 6 years is like, I would say that, me holding my head up high, understanding and respecting our relationship has allowed me to flourish more, but allows me to go out into the business scene and do my thing. So in the cannabis space, there's a lot of flash and there's a lot of, um, I guess, how do you say it? I'm not trying to degrade anybody, but
Influencers, types.
influencers that wear little clothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it is what it is. You've seen alcohol girls and
Oh yeah.
they
Yep.
and they're doing it for the attention. They're trying to draw the crowd in. They're trying to draw some people. And so one thing that I've learned is how to overcome that and look past I would call the distractions and go for the meat and potatoes of what I'm really there for. You know what I mean? So I'm there to do business. I'm not there to hang out. I'm not there to make new friends. And so what was the question? I'm sorry.
Just how having a spouse that or
Oh
fiance
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
that really supports you, like how that's allowed you to just be free to do and pursue the things that you're doing.
Yeah, sorry. I wasn't in dreamland with the influencers, by the way, guys. So no, oh no, but building that trust with her, being in public spots and coming home and then being able to share what I've learned or what I've got in return or anything like that. But she's been super supportive and understanding how seeing what it takes to grow, and like yesterday being in the grocery store, my youngest said, "Hey, it's really cool to see that we're able to buy all this stuff at the grocery store when before we couldn't."
Yep.
And like she knew that like when I first got with them, they had very minimal and living in an apartment and stuff like that. And, eating ramen noodles and maybe had enough to go out to eat maybe once or twice a month.
Yes.
And so we went to Costco yesterday and, the youngest was able to buy whatever she wanted to buy as her snacks for the week, to eat. But all in all, the support is more than just my spouse. It's from the kids too. You know what I mean? So like my oldest has a job. She's working at Zoomies, and she's able to like promote my product with stickers and stuff like that at her job.
Sure.
So, like the support comes, it is priceless, bro. I would, with the lack of better words, it's priceless because it's allowing me to be myself and flourish in my own lane and her not getting in the way.
I think, um, one of the things I've noticed, at least through my own personal relationship, is you hear a lot of people that have either a spouse that doesn't support them in their entrepreneurial journey, or like family that kind of passes them off. And I've been fortunate myself to have family that maybe doesn't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, but they support it, right? And that makes a entirely different foundation for you to be able to just have the confidence that no matter what, they know that you're going to find a way to succeed and they trust you. And that's such an incredible thing. Um, we're kind of running low on time here, but the last question I have for you is, as you've been kind of building your business out, you mentioned that you're not going to these events to meet new friends, right? And everybody knows that the entrepreneurial world can be a very lonely space for those of us that are, high performers. We tend to isolate sometimes as we're building. Some of our old friends don't necessarily understand what we're doing or why, so they don't know how to connect with us anymore. What is something you've done personally to make sure that you still have those good connections and friendships, uh, so that, you have a good support network outside of your, immediate family?
Hone in on the ones that are doing more than you that you aspire like or want to be more like. You know what I mean? Because like there's a couple friends that you do have, I feel like, that are doing a little bit better than you or as equal to you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You have a lot more friends that aren't doing as well as you that you used to hang out with a lot more freely because you have so much free time on your hands, so forth and so on. So, you know, um, like with me and you, we're pretty fortunate that we've at least gravitated to a men's accountability group, shout out on Caged. Um, but we have a huge support system with like-minded individuals that are doing better than us. You know what I mean? And so I kind of gravitate and reach out or network with more like-minded people like that and just kind of let the dead weight die off, you know? And kind of well as I do, you have kids and me raising kids that are just graduating and we both graduated ourselves. We both know that like when we thought that we were going to have our high school best friends for the rest of our life.
Yep.
And then when we turned 18 and graduated and got a job, we were like, what the hell? I have not seen my friend in 2 years. I hadn't seen Jimmy in 10 years.
Yep.
It's been 25 years. You know what I mean? So that time keeps going on and on. And so same concept. You know what I mean? It's time passes and I get sidetracked sometimes. My bad, bro.
I get it. But I feel you. I've been fortunate. I've had friends that I've known since we were, I think, getting our asses wiped in the nursery at church together, that I still am in contact with. And, a couple of them are business owners themselves, right? So like we have that connection and some of them aren't. But like again, I've had a very different life than most of the entrepreneurs that come up that are like, yeah, man, I got my ass kicked, did this, that, whatever. And I'm like, man, I had in terms of some of that stuff, like I had a very pampered life. Like I've got lifelong friends that are still friends with me. I've had family that's been super supportive. And but at the same token, yeah, those friends are great. Yeah, that family network's great. But I needed to surround myself with people that were doing things different, that were outside of my comfort zone, and really get me to start thinking a lot bigger. So like I totally agree with you. Uncaged has been fantastic. Getting to be around some of those guys that like, you get to the events and you hear some of them talking, you're just like, holy shit, like I'm thinking so small compared to what these guys are doing. But that's how you grow. And when you get to those events and you interact with those people, what happens is you find out they're just like you and went through the same shit you did. They like the same stuff you do. They behave the same way. They're just normal people that are just doing bigger shit than you, right? So
Moved. They moved. they figured out how to move the needle, and so like and when I let the dead weight die off, it's not like that I won't ever answer the friend for my old best friend ever, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, like that that hits home real hard for a lot of people. Is like it sucks that your childhood best friend and you aren't as cool as you used to be. And it's just because you've elevated yourself or you've wanted more for yourself. You know what I mean? And so and you're right. When you get in those rooms and you see that other people, they just kind of they figure out how to make things happen every day. And today was one of the days for me. I look back today and I was like, I got this, and this. And then I finished up with the podcast today. And I was telling this to a homie on the phone, and he was like, man, I'm proud of you. And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I'm, it's just a Thursday. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yep.
and people like me and you don't think of it as anything else. But like when you tell that to somebody and I'm not putting me or you on a pedestal. We just do more than others.
Yeah. You have to.
That's it. And so the the dead weight will die off just because you ultimately grow, and that's okay.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join me on the podcast here. I appreciate, hearing your story and what you're doing. And I look forward to seeing you, expand and grow and, extend your reach across the country.
I may or may not have consumed some cannabis before this, so if I have went in left field once or twice, my bad. But I'm all here, and I'm thankful for you, and appreciate you letting me share my message because it's only people like yourself and people that have a community and a platform to allow me to share my message and story. It's they see who the real me is and just realize that I'm a real dude just trying to help people with a holistic medicine. So
Problems.
appreciate you, Paul.
Thanks, man.
Hey, man, have a great night.
You.